with my long emotional history with Newcastle, now has to smuggle himself into the ground where the owner used to call me King Kev. But this is an extraordinary club, run by unconventional people. And perhaps the most charitable way I can put it, as Jesus said on the cross, is to forgive them, for they know not what they do. These people don't know what a precious club this is. They don't comprehend that football in this big, vibrant city is about self-esteem. They have made a toy out of Newcastle United, and as much as it pains me to say it, I have no desire to be associated with the place for as long as that continues. I will gladly return when they have gone, and I'm already looking forward to the day when Newcastle is free of the man who has lurched from one bad decision to another, run an empire of self-harm, and handed money and power to people who deserved neither. Until then, however, Ashley and his associates don't need to worry about me making a habit of turning up incognito. I don't want to share my oxygen with these people, trust me. The only other occasion I've ventured back to St James's Park was for the unveiling of Alan Shearer's statue, but, strictly speaking, that was on public land rather than the site of the stadium itself, and nobody can stop me walking the streets of Newcastle. That again was a bitter-sweet occasion. The statue, local hero, was paid for by the family of Freddie Shepherd, one of the directors who stood by my side in happier times. Newcastle didn't put in a penny, and it was the city council that found a plot of land in the shadow of the Milburn stand. It's all so very sad. The statues for Jackie Milburn and Sir Bobby Robson are directly in front of the stadium, but Shearer, Newcastle's all-time leading scorer, has been bumped round the corner because he refuses to be a cheerleader for corporate incompetence. Newcastle didn't even put a few sentences on the club's website, and plainly it was too arduous for anybody from the club to walk the 30 yards up Barrack Road to attend the unveiling. Perhaps I shouldn't be surprised when Alan, who is Newcastle through and through, has standards that surpass those of the club's owner, and doesn't feel the need to sugarcoat the truth in his television and media work. I have, after all, experienced the full force of the Mike Ashley regime, and, though I won my case against Newcastle for constructive dismissal, you can take my word that it wasn't a pleasant experience being engaged in a legal battle against a man of such power and immense wealth. That it was Newcastle at the centre of this litigation made it an even more harrowing experience. Indeed, the whole thing was so hideous, it convinced me I never wanted to work in football again. It was strange, though, when I returned to Newcastle on that undercover mission, how quickly I felt the place gnawing at my heart again. I'd never actually been that high up inside St James's before, and there was something very poignant about seeing the stadium catching its breath, so quiet and still, away from the bedlam of match day. The stadium always looked so elegant under lights, and, gazing down from one of the corporate suites, I found myself lost in my own thoughts until another of the guests wandered over. For a few seconds he stood beside me and looked out on the same scene. "You built this place, you know," he said quietly. "None of this would have been possible without you." Maybe he'd seen a little sadness in my eyes. They were kind words, and later that evening I felt myself drawn to that view again. I didn't often get sentimental about football grounds, but St James's had that effect on a lot of people, and as I looked at that rectangular stretch of grass, all the memories started flooding back. I found myself wondering whether the pitch still had its slant, left to right, as you were standing in the dugouts, and then I looked at the vertiginous stands behind each goal, and it struck me that the stadium had grown with the team. The Leazer's end, to my left, was now the largest cantilever structure in Europe. On the opposite side, the Gallowgate end, at the side of the ground facing the Tyne, was another magnificent presence on the city's skyline.